Hey gang, Mocha Boy here. Thanks for joining back in, and yeah, we've got a lot of information to cover today, so I'm just going to dive right on in, and we're going to move through this as quickly as possible. First things first, in the subreddit, there's a new post that we need everybody to take a look at, and this is posted by Chris, one of the co-leaders, and this is just a quick wrap-up of what it takes to attack a base and 2 or 3 star it in Clan Wars. Yes, there are a lot of different types of strategies that involve mixed compositions, but the tried and true methods, the ones that work and have the highest rate of success, are the ones that are covered here, and that's Mass Dragons, Hogs, Balloonions, and Giant Healer. Mass Dragons we covered in a video earlier. Hogs is something that we will be doing, and I'm going to show you a couple of replays from this war just to show you how the attacks were planned and how the deployment points were picked, along with some very special points about how to deploy your clan castle troops and what mix of troops to bring with you. So we'll cover that in detail a little bit later. There is Balloonions. We are starting to experiment with Balloonions, which is really fun. They're of marginal use until you get them up to about level 6, along with some high-level minions, but as Smokin showed us, they're useful at level 5 also, so long as your target is not obscenely upgraded. So we will also be talking about base design, because a few of those questions came up in clan chat. Plus we have a bunch of new members that are looking for some information. So I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page about where we need everybody to be, and what our expectations are from you, both in the clan as well as your performance within the clan wars. So long story short, take a look at the post, read through some of the available strategies, and start practicing. Grab a boatload of dark elixir or elixir, whatever you need, and just go attack some bases and see what happens. But one of the things that you absolutely must practice before we do this in the next war is luring a clan castle. And our friends over at South Park, this is a public service announcement for everybody out there. If you're going to be attacking in clan wars, unless you're going in there with dragons, lure out the clan castle. And I'll show you some tips on how to do that, on how to plan those lures. You can do it with giants. Hogs are really good for this type of role. But obviously, the higher level the hog that you have, the longer they'll survive. But this is something that we're going to cover. Just remember, if you guys are going to be participating in clan wars, make the lure the first and the majority of your strategy. If you cannot get past that, you are pretty much guaranteed to fail if you're using anything else except for dragons. So I just wanted to cover that. So Chris, thanks for putting this together. This is going to get a lot of good discussions going. There's a lot of YouTube videos on how this is done, but we're going to cover some things in specific here. So great, and on to the clan war wrap up. So let me just get a couple things moved over here. So let's see, reflector, great. Okay. So the clan war wrap up. We got matched up with Canadian Patriots, and this was a midweek war, which is something that we hadn't done in a while. After back-to-back wars and then once-a-week wars, we decided, we were hungry for a win after 2 really tough matchups. So we figured we'd change up the search day, and we got matched up with Canadian Patriots. So again, hat tip to the opposing clan. You guys did a bang-up job of deploying all of your attacks. We had some tough bases. They had some tough bases. I thought this was a pretty even matchup. They had a Town Hall 10. We don't have any Town Hall 10s, but they had a good collection of Town Hall 9 bases, and we're starting to come into our Town Hall 9 bases. So all in all, I felt that the number of attacks and the diversity of those attacks was about equal. There were still some kind of weird attacks, but we'll cover that. We'll cover that in detail a little bit later. So yeah, 81 attacks out of 90 possible attacks. So we had about 3 or 4 AFKs plus a couple of people who couldn't come in and complete their last round of attacks. But all in all, good percentage of participation. This is on par with our weekly averages. One of the things that I did want to point out, the spreadsheet was pretty useful this time around for coordinating attacks. And hang on one sec here. We will continue to do these spreadsheets And yes, they are posted in a public forum, and unfortunately, this one did get tampered with, but it wasn't anything too crazy. There's nothing of strategic value that's in here. This is really just a housekeeping tool. So if you're planning a specific type of attack, and a base is particularly susceptible to that type of attack, go in and sign up for this. We will encourage within clan chat, for people to have this information available. So this will be respected. I mean, I unfortunately, when I woke up to do my second attack, I didn't have access to a PC and nobody was online. So I just went ahead and attacked my second target. But unfortunately, Sananor had wanted to go after Grumpy Grinch, and my apologies to you, San. We both were able to come out on top with our attacks, so no harm there. But again, my apologies. So yeah, again, if you have a dragon raid and you find a base that's particularly susceptible to that type of attack, sign up for it for the second attacks. No one's going to touch your targets for the first 10 hours, but after that, it's pretty much open season. As much as possible, try to do this. Now, one other thing that I failed to do earlier, but I wanted to start doing moving forward, is starting to record wins, because people are going to want statistics. They're going to want to know how many 3-star battles they've had in a season, how many 2-star battles, whatever. So I started doing that, and if anyone wants to go in there and just finish up those numbers, that'd be great. But we'll try to make these statistics available on a rolling basis so people have that. So that is the spreadsheet. Now let's get back to the map. Oops. So view map. Now I've got a new toy I'm playing with here. Let's see if this works. Nope. Hang on. Fly sketch. Okay, perfect. I've got a screen annotator. This should be interesting. Oops. Control W, Control New. All right, cool. So great. Yeah, let me move through some of these. For the most part, our top bases were pretty much unscathed. They did try, but their defenses held up pretty well. And something similar happened on the opposing side, but our mid-tier held up pretty well. 2 stars. Unfortunately, my base, even with my tweaks, I still got rolled by a dragon raid, so I'm pretty sad about that. I'm upgrading my air defenses, so this won't be a long-term problem. Got a couple going on their way to level 6, which should provide some extra protection. Yeah, and pretty much expected as far as the rest of the range. A lot of our bases held up. A lot of the designs and clan war specific designs are working, so that's some good news there. So moving on to some of the opposing bases. Before we get into some of the attacks, I wanted to point out a few things. Let's take a look at some of these higher level bases and some of the considerations that it takes to get these. Now, in this particular case, the clan castle's on the outside, so this is an easy lure. But the way that you plan this, obviously, is that you click on the clan castle, and then you'll get the trigger range of that clan castle. All you have to do is get a troop somewhere in that trigger range. Now, the guys who are smart about base design make it so that that trigger range doesn't quite envelop a defensive structure, but maybe like a tip of it. And I'll show you some examples of some good examples of that from the Japan War in just a bit. But let's take a look at some of these other bases. This is one of the reasons why it is so important to try to centralize your clan castle as much as possible, because for an example like this, the only place where you can come in and attack to draw aggro will be from the northeast, possibly even from the southeast. Let's see. You can send in a hog here, you can send in a giant there. The giant will smack up against that wall and hopefully, last long enough. But unfortunately, there's probably either double bombs there or Tesla. Some spring traps there, spring trap there, definitely some spring traps there. These are the considerations that you have to make when you're looking at a base like this. You want to make sure that you draw out the clan castle and then pull them to a quiet corner, somewhere around here where you deploy your troops. Now, I mean, this is another thing that we'll cover, but when you're going for the lure, you want to first draw out the clan castle, and that can take anywhere from 3, 4, 5 barbarians, maybe a couple of hogs, a couple of giants. But once you have the clan castle as well as the heroes aggroed, you can pull them all into a corner and then just mug them. Typically what you can do is drop 5 barbarians really quickly, and then drop a string of archers right behind them. And then the most important part is to drop your hero and then drop your CC right behind them in that order. So barbarians, maybe 5 to 10, preferably 10. Your archers right behind them in a line, then your hero, and then the clan castle. What's going to happen in a situation like that is that the wizards, the hero will all have to fight through this to get to your actual DPS, which in a lot of cases was the clan castle DPS, maybe a bunch of wizards. And your hero will provide some extra insurance. Now, another thing about planning the lure is that once you get all of these guys dealt with, you can start your attack. Now, in the case of hogs, or any attack for that matter, you want to try to deploy into the corner that you want to send your whatever in, whether it's balloons or hogs or gowipe or whatever. And the reason that I mention this is because let's say you pull everything into a corner here and then you deploy hogs here. All of your DPS will smack right into these defenses and just get completely slaughtered. Meanwhile, your hogs will be ripping through the base, and then once they get to the end, this DPS will be gone, and you'll only have the hogs to deal with taking out the rest of the base. So, in a hypothetical scenario, let's say we deploy in this direction, you want your DPS right behind them because there will be nothing behind them to stop them as the hogs move through the base. And they'll be free to just go through and wreck everything, which will help. Because there will be scenarios where your hogs will just completely get decimated, or you'll be down to 4 or 5 and then have no DPS left over to take out the rest of the base. So this deployment strategy where you do, barbarians, archer, hero, and then CC behind them will have, you'll have anywhere from 6 to 7 wizards blasting through the base along with whatever you're taking through the base to go and take them out. So I thought I'd point that out. Practice those deployments. Practice the timing and the lure. Once you get those heroes and the CC aggroed, it's just a simple matter of dropping a barbarian and letting him walk until he gets killed. And ideally you'd have a structure out here that you could just plink away at with an archer, and the heroes and the CC will just take their time as they're moving over. So anyway. Clan castle luring, practice it. It's a skill you need, and it's something that you absolutely must do on every raid. So let's take a look at a couple of the replays. Bone Crusher, I believe this was a hog raid. Let's take a look. This was pretty straightforward. There weren't too many anti-hog features here. We were able to draw out the clan castle as well as the troops into the lower corner, actually the bottom left-hand corner. So as you can see there, your trash troops, archers right behind them, and then your DPS to take out the archers. And then the hogs start coming in from the top left-hand corner, deployed in 2 strings. They're going straight for the X-bows, which we're going to give you most of your trouble there. 1 delayed heal, which is great because he hasn't deployed too many heals at this point. Some hogs are pathing into the core of the base. They're probably going to get eaten up, but heals are staying with the core DPS group with the hogs. But God forbid they hit a double bomb. I mean, that would have been it, especially for level 4 hogs. 2 level 3 giant bombs would be enough to take them out. So if you haven't upgraded your giant bombs, no matter what level you're at, Town Hall 8 or 9, definitely focus on getting those upgraded. So yeah, I mean, once all the defenses are down, it's pretty much straightforward. Heroes come into action, and that base is done. So good job there. Let's take a look. Now, the attack on Saitree, this was, I believe, a balloonion raid. So balloons are tough. You have to lure out the clan castle, because for balloons, your primary considerations are going to be these guys. Once the balloons get in a range of wizards and air bombs, I mean, it's just bad news all around. And interestingly enough, one of the best defenses against balloonians are double air bombs. So if you have them, don't spread them out. Just cluster them all together, and you'll see just how much damage they do. Especially, oh, okay, I'm sorry, this wasn't balloons. This was hogs. This was Shime coming in. Coming in from the northeast, as you can see, one of the things that he did was he deployed his heals right away because of the wizard towers that were right here. They were clustered, and these clustered wizard towers are a real nightmare to deal with if you're running with hogs. But notice here with how many hogs he ended up with. I'm looking at maybe 10 or 11 of them, which is enough to wreck the base. But you know, you want to make sure that you're left over with as much DPS as possible. And in this case, he had minions for cleanup, and minions are fantastic for this because you know they can fly over walls. But obviously, all the deployment rules are the same as usual. You want to make sure that you don't deploy them in a cluster because all it takes is one bomb to take them out. So spread them out as you're going. Let's see. Oh, CR this was the balloonion raid. So let's take a look at this base here. So I believe he had expos pointing down, which was one of the reasons why we decided to do an air raid for this one. But you know, pretty easy lure. Only 3 troops in the clan castle, and the balloonians come out. They're deployed in an L format in the bottom, in the southern corner. And notice he's leading with his defense-led troops, and then he's got his actual DPS in the south, just going through and wrecking the base. And he's got his witches, you know, just going gangbuster. In scenarios like this, you don't even really have to deal with the BK, but definitely take out the Archer Queen. Now this is unfortunate because the BK actually managed to get the one of the witches down. But so yeah, this one was down to the wire because all the balloons had been taken out, and all we were left with were minions. But you know, the nice thing about minions is that they're not really susceptible to the air defenses because of you know, there's so many of them. So they were able to go through and clean everything up. And as Chris said, you know, it wasn't pretty, but hey, it worked. This is one of those things that can be hit or miss, you know, depending on your strategy. But he came in with enough options to make sure that no matter what happened, we were in good shape. So that was that raid. And we're going to take a look at one more lower level balloon raid. Where are you? Synapse. Okay, replay. This was from another Town Hall 8, and the question came up of what this base was. There's no name that I've come across. It's just a Town Hall 8 spiral, and you know it's the spiral because of these structures here. Now, what's interesting about them is that, you know, most people might try to attack from here, in which case you just send in one giant and then a cluster of giants behind them, or you can just completely bypass the traps and bombs here and here and just send a wall breaker in through here, in this juncture, this juncture. You want to stay away from these until the end, but definitely go for archer towers and resources. There's usually not that much there. Now, one of the things about these bases is that there are just no traps internally, so these are extremely susceptible to hog attacks. You just have to send the hogs through a line where you know there will be no traps. So anyway, sorry, there's just another hog tip there. Again, balloonion raid. These were deployed in a staggered formation, so that's Chief Pat's sandwich technique. That's where you send in one string, your minions right behind them, and then another string of balloons right behind them. And you know, these attacks are all about rages and heals. Yes, you can probably go through with rages, but at some point you're gonna have to heal some of these balloons. So these were level 5 balloons, I believe, and level 3 minions. So you know, I know he's upgrading these pretty soon, and he'll be joining the ranks of some of the best balloon attacks out there. This was against a lower level base, and you know, this is a great option to mass dragon. So instead of having to spend 600k on a dragon army, you can spend somewhere in the neighborhood of about, you know, 250k on a balloonian raid. I think it's like 153,000 elixir for just the balloons, and then you need a raft of spells, which can run you, you know, that can run you another 150 to 200k depending on your level. So great job there. One more I wanted to point out. Let's see, where is Floyd? Because this one was one that we were all rooting for, because this is one attack that we're all going to be modeling over the course of time, and this was a gowipe attack. So golems, wizards, P.E.K.K.A.s with rages and heals. Again, standard lure, only 3 troops, dragon, wizard, and an archer. These are pretty easy to take down because, they dump out of the castle really fast. You don't need a lot of troops to lure them. So the wizards are out, wrecking the bases. Now, remember here what I mentioned about steering. Steering is extremely important here. You don't want to dump them all at one time because all that'll happen is, if you deployed everything in a cluster down here, all they do is just path around the base. And this is especially the case with P.E.K.K.A.s and wizards. Now in this particular, you see this group, they're already starting to path around instead of going straight up. Typically what you would want to do is deploy DPS here. And, this is the same thing as happens with dragon raids. Deploy DPS to take out the trash buildings here, and then leave your actual DPS core to move into the center of the base. So as you can see here, all the DPS left the tanks. The tanks are taking the scenic tour of the base, which is, that's unfortunate. But they actually were enough to take out the rest of the base, interestingly enough. So they're going ring around the base. There's still a few wizards left, and they met up with the tanks again. And thankfully, this was enough to take out the rest of the base. But this could have gone south in a hurry. But luckily, due to some good pathing and a whole lot of luck and some really, really tanky P.E.K.K.A.s, this was a nice 3-star by Steve. So could go in there. That's definitely something people are going to want to take a look at if you're curious about those attacks. Just I'll have these recordings available now. Let's see, my 2 attacks, these are the ones that I wanted to point out because, so my match was Rick Von Dutch, and this was fairly straightforward. He actually left me an opening here to go in and trip some traps. So, I went to all the obvious areas. You want to go for these openings here, definitely here. There were definitely going to be Teslas there. Maybe something here, definitely something there, definitely something there, that kind of thing. This is what I'm doing as I'm assessing a base, is where are the traps and where are the spring traps. And the interesting thing about this base is this entire line here have no internal spaces between them, especially these. And because of that, actually, let me shut up for a second. So, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, dragged everything into the bottom left-hand, deployed the barbarians, string of archers right behind them, and then the wizards. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to rip through the base in this direction, actually coming in from 2 directions. And then they're going to veer south and go this way. But mind you, the DPS is right behind them, and there's nothing to contest. There's nothing to contest them as the hogs rip through the base. Again, I dropped my heels near the wizard towers. Lost a few to a spring trap there, but I had a bunch in reserve, so they came in to meet up with the primary DPS force. And then the really nice thing was this heal down here healed both groups, both strings. So that was pretty fantastic. But at this point there was only 1 left. And meanwhile, DPS is still ripping through the base. Hogs turn back around and start cleaning up. So all in all, pretty straightforward base. And I'll show you one more example of a hog attack with the lure. But this time I want you to pay attention to the lure, because this was a little bit trickier to do. Because this was a bigger base. Actually, sorry. So yeah, opponent here had a bunch of wizards and a bunch of archers. Now, interesting thing here. I drop my barbarians anywhere where there are open spaces, because typically there are just bombs there, and you don't want those messing with your attacks. So it just turned out that I was 4 for 4 with all of those spaces, or 5 for 4 anyway. So I've got the wizards and the archers up in the north corner, and this is because I'm going to deploy in a string in 2 strings down here. My hogs are going to go do this. Or at least I think they're going to do this. And then the heels will come in around here, and then possibly around here. So let's watch this all unfold. I haven't deployed my CC here because I was able to take it out with just the troops that I came in with. So the hogs are coming in, starting to veer this way, lost a few to a spring trap. These guys should start pathing that way. And right about now, I'm starting to see these guys take damage, so I drop a heal. I could have dropped that a little bit further so that it encompassed all of these structures, but you never know what these guys are going to do. Healed that left crew as well. And then what's really nice is that they met up. And again, very lucky with this heal here, because this group moved through and then this group is going to move through also. So that one heal was a twofer. I got to heal both groups for the cost of one spell. And at that point, pretty much game over. And again, the problems with, there aren't necessarily too many problems with this base. This is a pretty strong design, just from a basic base design concept. But the problem is that there are no internal spaces for traps. And because of that, it's really easy to rip through this base in a pretty serial fashion, have the have the hogs meet up at one point and then finish off the base going off like that. So three things to pay attention to there again was the lure. I dropped 3 barbarians up there, aggroed the queen, aggroed the king, and then just pulled them over to the corner where I dropped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 barbarians, an archer behind them, and then my BK, and then if necessary the CC. All right, so let's take a look at what else do we have here. Okay, so for this next one we've got Chris, and he's dropping dragons in the northwest. Now, interestingly enough, the cluster of air defenses there makes this. You would think that would be a good feature for a base, but it's actually not, because they're clustered like that. They're highly susceptible to a mass dragon attack. Chris went ahead and lightning bolt one of them, and now he's only down to 2. And notice the way that he steered this DPS group by going through and clearing out that trash there. You clear out these buildings here, that pushes anything that you deploy in that direction, because there's nothing for them to attack, and you want them as much as possible to steer into the core of the base. So good job steering there. And yeah, pretty straightforward. This once the air defenses are down, it's pretty much game over. But one of the smart moves that Chris made was taking out the air defense on the opposing corner and leaving these available for the dragons to take out. So nice going there. And let's see, what else do we want to take a look at? Okay, let's take a look at XSI, because Van Stuyck came in and towards the end and really helped improve our score. So yep, Mass Dragons from the bottom right, level 3s. He's up against, yeah, so 3 level 4s, 2 quick rages right away. Clan Castle starts to dump out, but they get dealt with pretty quickly. And then a heal, because everything is clustered. Now that works really well because, again, everything was clustered in the center. So that worked. Yeah, 2 rages and a heal on a very compact base seems to be the trick there. So nicely done there. It seemed like a pretty straightforward attack. And let's see what else there was. Nacho coming in and showing his stuff again. Good job there. So Sack came in with some very cool attacks as well. Ryan. Okay, so yeah, I'll cover some of these other attacks in detail in a separate video. We're already getting pretty long. The last thing I wanted to get into was, oops, not that. So base design. This question came up in clan chat, and I wanted to point out a few bases from Japan and why we had such trouble with these guys. When you look at this guy, notice when you click on the clan castle, notice the trigger range of that clan castle. The only way to get stuff out of there is to send in something over this wall into harm's way. And you know, whatever you send into here is not going to last very long. So that's a tricky lure. Oh, now this was the base that I was talking about. This was a really, really interesting base. Again, very difficult to lure, centralized clan castle. You have very few options with which to send troops in without sending more than one troop in. So typically what would happen in a scenario like this is you would have to send in, you know, more than one hog, say maybe even like 3 or 4 hogs to go and attack something like this. And then, you know, once they're done there, get into trigger range, and they'll live long enough, hopefully, you know, for the clan castle to dump out. And notice this guy's got 30 troops. It could take, if he was smart, he would have loaded it up with trash, and then the actual DPS behind the trash. That way you'd end up, you know, spilling half your army out to just lure that castle. In situations like this, it's actually beneficial to have an extra lightning bolt just to deal with them, but that's really only if you're a Town Hall 9. I wouldn't be trying to touch a base like this with Town Hall 8, even with level 4 hogs. So what was really interesting about this base was these open pockets here. There was a Tesla, I think, in each one of these, or at least these 3 primary components. And you know, anything that you sent into there, you know, was raining 85 DPS on them from the edges. And then yeah, so that made the lures extremely, extremely tough. And mind you, with this particular clan, this was every single base. This is the flower base, same thing here. This one is probably targetable. This one is definitely targetable, as is this one. But in a situation like this, all of the defensive structures that you might attack are going to be in this arc. All of the ones on the lower right-hand side are definitely out of reach, because there's no way to get any troops to them. But in cases like this, you know, you would send a hog over that wall at that structure, or possibly this one, but this is probably the best one. So as you're designing your bases, just remember the compact designs are really susceptible to dragon attacks. Open up your middle, open up your inside so that there are, you know, plenty of spaces for things like double bombs and just regular bombs, because they really are your only defense against hogs. And try to stagger. Well, obviously, upgrade your air defenses as high as they'll go. Town Hall 5 at a minimum. Excuse me, level 5 at a minimum, but preferably level 6. You know, to defend off those level 3 dragon attacks. You're not going to win them all. Sometimes they just get a lucky roll, but you need to make it as difficult for them as possible to score 3 stars using that tactic. And then force them to a ground assault, and then lead those hogs or whatever into a double bomb trap. So yeah, that's everything on my list. Again, we're going to be trying to do this. We're going to try to do this again on the weekend. If you can't get your attack in, let a co-leader know, so that, or you know, drop it on the spreadsheet. If you can try to sneak in one attack, that'd be great, because everything that you do counts. If you have any questions, or if there are any particular replays that you want me to pick apart, just let, you know, drop it down in the comments and let me know. But thanks for tuning in, and you know, looking forward to having another successful weekend. Take care, folks.